business, success is often the most dangerous problem you can face. For Wizards of the Coast, in the summer of 1993, the success of their new collectible card game was a full-blown corporate crisis. Magic the Gathering wasn't just a hit, it was an unstoppable, industry-defining phenomenon. The initial print run of 2.6 million alpha cards, which the company projected would last for months, was devoured by the market in a matter of weeks. The supply chain was obliterated. The game they had created was now utterly starving for product. And without new cards, the burgeoning player base, the very engine of their success, would quickly dissipate. The fire, if not urgently fed, would die. The story of what happened next is a masterclass in market correction and risk-taking. It's a narrative defined by frantic, operational fixes, a controversial design decision that forever bifurcated the collector and player communities, and a radical, high-stakes gamble on an entirely new world. This is the story of how a small, ambitious company saved their game from the very thing that created it, its own runaway success. The immediate priority for Wizards was twofold: increase volume and increase quality. The first print run, Alpha, was a beautiful, foundational product, but it was riddled with imperfections inherent in a groundbreaking, rushed project. It contained typos, cards with missing mana costs, and confusing rules text, the charming chaos of a first edition product. The design team, led by creator Richard Garfield, immediately began work on the second printing. They weren't changing the core mechanics, but they were determined to establish a professional standard for the future. They called the new run Beta. It was the finalized blueprint. Over 300 cards were meticulously re-edited. They sharpened the notoriously rounded corners, cleaned up the most ambiguous rules text, and even commissioned new illustrations for a handful of cards, like the now iconic Demonic Tutor. This was more than a reprint. It was a decisive statement of commitment and quality control to the rapidly expanding consumer base. Wizards then placed an order for 7.8 million cards, triple the size of the Alpha run. When Beta hit the stores in October 1993, the market response was identical. It sold out almost instantly. The supply issue was still a crippling operational hurdle, but in solving the quality problem, the team had unintentionally created a market segmentation problem, one that would define the value of every collectible card game that followed. A tension immediately arose between the players and the collectors. The first edition Alpha cards, with their crisp black borders, were sacrosanct relics. The nearly identical black-bordered Beta cards, though, felt to the collectors like a betrayal, a dilution of the prestige and scarcity that justified the original investment. Wizards of the Coast found themselves at the epicenter of the first ever collector panic in the TCG industry. They had to navigate a fundamental business challenge. How do you keep the game accessible and affordable for the players, who are the lifeblood of the game, without alienating the collectors who provided its initial financial stability? Their answer, developed for the third and much larger print run, was a masterstroke of design and market psychology. For this new set, dubbed Unlimited, they would change one small but immediately visible aesthetic element. They replaced the black border with a clean, bright white border. The effect was immediate and profound. The white border was a clear, unambiguous line in the sand. It visually signaled to the consumer, this is a mass-market reprint. This single design choice preserved the scarce, premium status of the black-bordered Alpha and Beta cards, cementing them as the definitive collector's items. Crucially, it kept the game itself widely available and affordable for new players. This brilliant compromise solved the collector dilemma, solidified the value of first editions, and structurally established the foundation for the entire secondary market. With the core set stabilized and the supply chain finally scaling up, the question shifted from how to print cards to what to print next. Richard Garfield recognized that the promise of Magic lay in its potential for infinite possibility. Simply reprinting the same cards forever would eventually lead to stagnation. It was time to expand. Garfield decided to do something radical. He wouldn't just add cards to the core set, he would transport players to an entirely new plane of existence with its own unique flavor, mechanics, and identity. He drew inspiration not from the standard European fantasy of dragons and elves, but from the richly layered folk tales of the Arabian Nights. This was a monumental gamble. Would the established player base embrace a world of jinns and afrits? The expansion, titled Arabian Nights, was mechanically unlike anything seen before. It introduced cards like Shahrazad, which forced players to play a nested subgame of Magic within their current match. It brought the City of Brass, an essential but painful land, and it featured the first ever abilities that could be activated from the graveyard. This wasn't merely more Magic, it was the demonstration that the game engine could host infinite worlds. To distinguish the expansion, Wizards initially planned another controversial choice: a different colored card back. The lighter golden hue was intended to signal that these cards were from an entirely separate world. This idea was quickly reversed in a now legendary moment of panic by playtesters and distributors. They argued a simple functional truth: the cards had to be intershuffleable. A different card back would instantly make the new cards unplayable in competitive decks. At the absolute last minute, the decision was rescinded. To mark the set as special, to identify it as the very first expansion, they added a small, unobtrusive icon on the front of the card, a scimitar. This was the debut of the expansion symbol, an element that would become a fundamental staple of the game for decades. When Arabian Nights was finally released in December 1993, the initial market response was a mix of confusion and hesitant enthusiasm. But that confusion quickly turned into full-blown obsession as players discovered the game-breaking power and strategic depth of the new cards. They realized the expansion wasn't a replacement for the core game, it was an enhancement and an evolution. You could take these strange new cards and fuse them with your older ones to create entirely new and far more powerful decks. Arabian Nights was the ultimate proof of concept. It demonstrated that Magic the Gathering was not merely a popular game, but a robust platform, a versatile system that could host infinite worlds, infinite mechanics, and infinite stories. The white border of Unlimited had successfully saved the collector market and player accessibility, but the scimitar of Arabian Nights had saved the game itself, proving its limitless future beyond the original base set. With the first expansion, the designers learned they could draw inspiration from anywhere in the world. But for their next trick, they would do something even more ambitious. They would stop borrowing from our world's history and begin building their own. The age of cohesive, epic lore was about to begin. If this video brought back memories of opening your first booster pack, please hit that like button and subscribe. And in the comments below, tell us, what was the first Magic expansion you ever played? Join us next time as we dive into the story of two feuding brothers whose lust for power shattered a civilization and gave Magic the Gathering its first epic narrative milestone, the Brothers' War.